The jobs that will disappear. First, in September 2025, Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff went on a podcast and said something that made headlines around the world. He said his company had just cut 4,000 customer support jobs. Not because business was bad, not because the economy collapsed, because AI was now handling 50% of all customer interactions at the same satisfaction scores as humans, and he simply didn't need those people anymore. 4,000 jobs, gone, in one company, in 1 year. And Salesforce wasn't even the most aggressive, not even close. What's actually happening right now across dozens of industries is bigger and stranger than most people realize. According to consulting firm Challenger, Gray & Christmas, AI was directly cited as the reason for 55,000 U.S. job cuts in 2025 alone. That's 12 times more than just 2 years earlier. The World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report, published in January 2025, surveyed over 1,000 employers across 55 countries. They're finding 41% of those employers plan to reduce headcount specifically because of AI within the next 5 years. But here's the part the headlines tend to skip. The jobs disappearing first aren't the ones at the bottom. In many cases, they're the educated, credentialed, white-collar positions that people spent years and significant money training for. Let's go through them, starting with what's already happened. Let's start with customer service, because the evidence there is clearest. Klarna, the Swedish fintech company, deployed an AI assistant built with OpenAI in 2024. Within 1 month of launch, that assistant was handling the equivalent workload of 700 full-time customer service agents. The company's headcount dropped from over 5,500 employees to around 3,400, a reduction of nearly 40%. Then by mid-2025, something interesting happened. Customer satisfaction scores started dropping. Complaints rose. The CEO, Sebastian Siemiatkowski, publicly admitted they had gone too far. The company started rehiring. That reversal tells you something important. AI is not perfect. Not yet. But it is already good enough to replace thousands of workers, make a company more profitable, and force a rethink only after the damage to quality becomes visible. In 2025, Chief Executive Officer Arvind Krishna told the Wall Street Journal that AI had already replaced hundreds of human resources workers. Ask HR now handles 11.5 million employee interactions per year, with less than 5% requiring a human. IBM is not planning to refill those roles. Amazon, in October 2025, announced the largest layoff round in the company's history, 14,000 corporate positions. Chief Executive Officer Andy Jassy had already written in an internal memo that AI agents would reduce the size of the corporate workforce over time. The cuts came for layers of management, coordination roles, and administrative positions. The kind of work, Jassy said, AI can now handle faster. Workday, a company that literally sells human resources software, cut 1,750 of its own employees in February 2025, citing the need to reallocate resources toward AI development. HP followed in November, announcing 4,000 to 6,000 cuts by 2028 for the same reason. But all of that is in the tech sector, and some people hear that and think, fine, that's Silicon Valley. That doesn't affect me. So let's talk about the jobs that do affect you. In 2025, Bloomberg Intelligence published research estimating that AI could replace 53% of tasks performed by market research analysts and 67% of tasks done by sales representatives. Management roles face 9 to 21% automation risk. Read that again. Sales representatives, people whose entire job is described as relationship-based, persuasion-driven, human-centered work, are facing 2/3 displacement risk. The legal profession is where the numbers get particularly uncomfortable. Legal research has always been considered skilled work, reviewing case law, cross-referencing statutes, summarizing documents for senior attorneys. This work was the entry point into a legal career. It paid well. It required years of education. AI tools can now scan thousands of legal documents and produce a summary in under a minute. Law firms have noticed entry-level associate hiring has dropped significantly, not because fewer people want to be lawyers, but because the work those associates used to do is increasingly done by software. Research from Signal Fire showed that big tech companies cut new graduate hiring by 25% between 2023 and 2024. Not overall hiring, graduate hiring, the starting positions, the first rung of the ladder. Between October 2022 and July 2025, workers aged 22 to 25 in AI-exposed fields saw a 13% relative decline in job opportunities. That is not layoffs. That is doors not opening in the first place. And then there is accounting. Modern accounting software does not just crunch numbers, it flags anomalies, generates audit-ready reports, and files basic tax returns without any human involvement. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projects a meaningful decline in bookkeeping and accounting clerk roles over the next decade. But again, the more telling signal is not the projections. It is the hiring freeze. Companies are not firing their accountants. They are simply not replacing them when they leave. The senior partners, the strategists, the people who understand what a number means in a business context, they are fine. Everyone below them is looking at a shrinking ladder. But if that surprises you, the next one will genuinely shock you. Software engineers. This is the job that was supposed to be the answer. Learn to code. That's what everyone said for a decade. The future belongs to developers. In 2025, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella disclosed that AI tools, specifically GitHub Copilot, were now writing roughly 30% of new code across the company. Microsoft then cut 6,500 employees, and 40% of those cuts hit developers, not sales, not HR, developers. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei made a prediction in 2025 that caused significant controversy. He said AI could eliminate up to half of all entry-level white-collar jobs within 5 years. He runs an AI company. He knows what his own technology can do. Content creation is another category that collapsed faster than almost anyone expected. In 2025, over 80% of marketing leaders reported using AI to generate written content. Duolingo terminated contracts with 10% of its contractor workforce, the translators, content writers, and localization specialists, because large language models could now handle those tasks across more than 100 languages the platform offers. The creative middle, the solid professional, deadline-meeting writers, designers, and junior developers, is the demographic that has taken the hardest hit. Not the brilliant, irreplaceable talents at the top. Not the entry-level workers who can pivot quickly. The experienced mid-career professionals who built careers doing competent work at volume. Meanwhile, there is one category of worker that almost no one mentions in these conversations. Their situation is genuinely the most counterintuitive part of this entire story. The jobs least likely to disappear, the ones that look nothing like office work. Electricians, plumbers, HVAC technicians, structural welders. The World Economic Forum's 2025 report specifically identified these trades as among the most resilient to AI displacement, not because AI is ignoring them, but because the physical, unpredictable environments they work in are genuinely hard to automate. Every building is different. Every pipe has a different configuration. Every electrical fault requires someone who can physically move through a space, observe context, and make judgment calls in real time. Robotics has made enormous progress in controlled factory environments, but deploying a robot to fix a burst pipe in a 1960s apartment building in a city, that problem remains largely unsolved, and it will not be solved quickly. The irony is blunt. Someone who skipped university and trained as an electrician may have more job security in 2030 than someone who spent 6 years getting a law degree. Retail cashiers are already largely gone, or going. Walmart's self-checkout rollout is projected to replace up to 8,000 positions, and Sam's Club's AI verification systems could eliminate 12,000 cashier roles. That's happening now, not in the future, according to Design Rush. But the plumber? The structural engineer who has to physically walk a building? They are not going anywhere yet. The IMF estimated that in high-income countries, roughly 60% of all jobs have meaningful exposure to AI capabilities. But exposure does not mean immediate replacement. The gap between AI being capable of doing something and AI actually doing it at scale is where the real story lives right now. Here's what ties all of this together. And it's not something you'll see in most of these articles. The conversation about AI and jobs usually frames this as a question of capability. Can AI do the work? And the honest answer to that question in 2026 is, for a surprisingly large number of tasks, yes. But the more important question is different. It's not whether AI can do the work. It's whether companies have the economic incentive to replace people. And right now, in white-collar work, in the roles that are entirely digital, that leave no physical trace, that exist entirely as documents, emails, reports, and decisions, that incentive is enormous and growing every quarter. Wall Street banks alone plan to remove approximately 200,000 jobs over the next 3 to 5 years, specifically targeting entry-level and back-office roles. That's one industry, one announcement, 200,000 people. We or Tenet, the World Economic Forum projects that by 2030, 92 million jobs will be displaced globally. They also project 170 million new ones will be created. So the net number looks positive. But here's what that framing hides. The jobs disappearing are concentrated. They're the ones in the middle. The trained, educated, credentialed professionals who were told that knowledge was their protection. The jobs being created require entirely different skills. And the transition period between those two realities is what we're living through right now. None of this is happening uniformly, and none of it is inevitable in a fixed way. Klarna went all in on AI, replaced 700 support agents, watched quality collapse, and started rehiring within 18 months. That's a case study in what happens when you move faster than the technology is actually ready for. But the direction of travel isn't changing. The pace is debatable. The destination, less so. Anthropic's research team found that high-usage AI occupations are beginning to see modestly slower hiring, not mass layoffs, but a quiet narrowing of the door. And multiple. The workers who understand what's happening, clearly, without panic, without denial, are the ones who have time to adapt. That's the only advantage available right now, and it's a real one.